Okay, well, welcome. My name is Eric. I am with Magic EdTech. I am joined by Dinesh and Mohammed from Rapid AI for Learning. Good morning, gentlemen. I appreciate you joining me today.
Morning,
Thanks,
Eric.
and
Nice to
good evening from Australia.
And hey, good evening as well. Well, gentlemen, why don't we start just to create some context for those who might be watching and listening. Why don't you tell me a little bit about Rapid AI for Learning first?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So Rapid AI for Learning, at Rapid AI for Learning, we basically build global AI literacy and competency training for the education and training sector. So we do have a global lens when we do this. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do this is we saw a gap in the market when we started devising this well over a year ago. We saw that there wasn't anything purely for AI literacy in the education and training space. It was very much around science and technology, and it was very much focused on large language models and machine learning and very technical. And we wanted to peel it back and think about how AI as a tool could be used to enhance pedagogy and enhance delivery in education settings. So what we do is we offer end-to-end solutions, we offer frameworks, we offer, really important perspectives on how leaders can actually adopt AI and AI governance and AI ethics and put it into practice. We also help the innovators and the early adopters to actually put AI into practice in classrooms and to do what they're good at. And then we also want everyone else to come along on the journey. So we have foundational AI literacy training as well.
Mohammed, that's great. Mohammed, you want to add anything to that?
Well, yeah, I do. In fact, yeah. So our core charter is really taking AI training and learning beyond the most obvious, which is people talk about efficiency, they talk about productivity, they talk about technology. And these are relevant and they're important, but for us, these are really byproducts of the core purpose of AI, which is about improving the quality outcomes for the user. And in our particular case, our focus is on the education or the various education sectors, predominantly the sort of a corporate training sector, the school education sector, and the higher education sector. So it's really about teaching frameworks and the efficiencies of the productivity. These are natural byproducts, but not our core focus.
Right. So just to peel back the onion, and we'll jump right in here. Could you say a little bit about you're talking about AI in the education sector? Could you actually just dive in a little bit to why AI literacy is becoming essential in the education sector and in the workforce as well?
Yeah, so AI literacy is actually becoming a prerequisite for most industries today. And they really, I think employers expect you now to hit the ground running and be really well versed in AI and tech literacy. So we also see sort of LinkedIn showing us that AI is now the number one skill that you need to have. And it's become that pivotal and that sort of quintessential. So I think some countries have moved faster and are really embedding AI and AI literacy now into their school curriculum and into their education system. We see that China and India have made movements in that. We know that America is now doing the same thing. The UK, across Asia, we're seeing Singapore, South Korea in particular, making movements all the way into the Middle East with the UAE. But it's really now become so crucial that the education sector catches up and that AI is embedded into education curriculum. It's embedded into assessment, and it is very much about rethinking the way that we do things in order to make sure that the learners of tomorrow are future-proofed and future-ready.
Right. So that's great. And Mohammed, Dinesh is talking about education institutions really adopting this and integrating it into their curriculum or curricula rather. How should they go about doing that? What are the steps that educational institutions should take to make sure that AI is present in their curriculum?
Yeah, a really good question, Eric. The first step is to have a mindset which is receptive to exploration and innovation regarding AI. This idea that this is irrelevant to us, this is not something that we don't value, that we don't want, that we won't use, is just not realistic. And it's, I'm sure we've all heard this before, but it's quite comparable to what we used to say about, the radio and television and the internet and driving cars. And all of these technologies have inherent risks embedded within them, and AI is no exception. So the first step is to have a mindset that, we as an institution, as an organization, are willing to experiment and to see how AI fits into our teaching and learning practice. The second step is to accept that and recognize that there are risks. And the third step then, of course, is then to begin to mitigate those risks by looking at compliance, by looking at practice, by looking at governance, and by having a whole of institution approach in terms of, again, within the education sector, we're talking three primary stakeholders: the education leaders, the education practitioners, the students, of course, as well as the, in terms of the school community, the parents as well. So there's no one size fits all approach, and there are thousands and thousands of AI tools available, and they mostly do great things, but it's really about finding the best fit for what you need, and that requires some planning, and it requires energy, and it's not about pushing a few buttons and getting some quick solutions. It requires a consultative stakeholder approach.
And Eric, can I just add something to that?
Of course, yes, please.
I think that globally, from the research that Mohammed and I have done, I think it's really become apparent that we need to reimagine curriculum and assessment around the world to embed AI literacy, AI ethics, and incorporate critical thinking and problem solving skills into everything that we do. And I think it's just really, really important to think about the type of skill sets that we want our students to be exiting with, and starting there. What are the skills, what are the outcomes that we want them to be exiting with? And then we can actually look for opportunities to embed AI and this sort of technology into the curriculum. But I think we have to sort of step back, and we have to be really looking at how do we teach our students to have a curious mindset? How do we get them to challenge what the AI is telling them? And generally get them to look beyond the obvious and to look for deeper meaning. Because if we're doing those sorts of things, we're going to be setting them up for success. We're going to be equipping them to be successful in whatever industry they move into.
Right. And no, I think that's great. And actually, just to go a little bit deeper as well, Mohammed, you mentioned that there are many tools available, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about, with that many tools available, how do educators and learners identify which tools are more valuable?
Yeah, and I think this is what is creating a lot of procrastination, or, as people say, analysis paralysis, because they're looking for the next new shiny application, and they're asking it, what are you using? And really the best place to start is to do some research, and there are some really good platforms that can help you make your research more efficient, and start with the question, why do I need AI? How will AI help me, rather than which tool should I be using? So I think that's the biggest mistake people make. They start off with the question, which AI tool should I use, rather than asking, why should I be using AI? How can an AI application help me? And in general, again, we don't claim to be AI specialists across all sectors and disciplines, but we certainly know the education space. And my recommendation is, when you're looking for an AI solution to whatever issue or problem you're trying to improve or change or correct or solve in your workplace, you either go for a specialist application that does that's really, really good at doing one particular thing, or you go for an end-to-end solution, but nothing in between. And you've really got to be, use your critical thinking and test those tools. And if you, again, you use those research or review websites, you can get access to, free versions and sort of trial applications, so you can test and get a feel for that, how that application works. But for my thinking, either you use a really highly specialized tool, or one that is end to end, but not one that does little bits of everything.
Right, right. And we're talking about tools, but I wonder if you could go further and talk a little bit about really the skills that you're hoping by virtue of bringing AI into the education space. Really, what's the end goal here? What are the skills that you're hoping students come away with, maybe even educators come away with? But at the end of the day, what's the raison d'etre of bringing AI into the classroom space? Dinesh, do you want to take that?
It's a great question, Eric. I mean, we basically believe that you start with foundational AI literacy, and you teach that, and you help people to get an understanding of how AI works, its uses, possibilities. And this, of course, includes what Mohammed spoke about before, experimenting with tools and platforms, but also having an understanding of AI ethics, AI frameworks, and then also looking at things like bias and hallucinations, and knowing that they're there. So I think if you start, that's your starting point in terms of getting people literate. That's the way that we see it. We believe that you can then move into AI competency, where you're starting to look to solve real world problems using AI as a tool or a thought partner. This is where things like chatbot creation can be really helpful, or using AI agents as tutors for the student, using them as assistants for the learners as well. And also, I should say, you could actually also have AI agents as assistants for teachers. That's what it should be used as well. So I think if we can use AI to help minimize the administrative burden for people, or to facilitate some deeper thinking, then that's a great thing. Because basically, if we can have AI doing more of that shallow thinking work for us, we can then build deeper human connections with each other. And I think that should be the goal and the objective in the classroom, with our students, with our colleagues, those deeper connections. And we are seeing that this is working. We've done a little bit of research and spoken to people, but basically we're finding that users are reporting that many students are actually asking a lot more simple questions to the chatbots, and then they're engaging on a deeper level with their teachers or their facilitators. And that's something that we'd love to see.
Can I add, Eric,
please,
if you don't
please,
mind,
of course.
in terms of skill, and this one really fascinates me, because when I first began to think about AI, like we all did maybe 18 odd months ago, 2 years ago, I have this very stereotypical notion that it's going to take over our jobs, and it'll kill our capacity to be creative and to think critically. And now I've come to understand that one of the key skills AI does or develops is your critical thinking skills. If you do it correctly, if you do it within a sort of a structured framework or methodology, rather than sort of tinkering around with it, it necessitates your need, or the need for you to think critically and review or examine or question or analyze the information that you're pulling from those systems, to check for its accuracy, to check for its relevance, to check for its context, to check for its application. And one of our learners, interestingly, that did our course, during the course, she came to one of our live workshops, and said, I'm very confused. I did exactly what you told me, and I got my students to use 3 different AI platforms, and I've got 3 different answers. And she was very annoyed and very upset. And it was at that point when I said to her, this is what you should be doing. That's the outcome that we're expecting. That's when it clicked in. We need to start to question the information and think about how is it relevant and useful and accurate for what we're trying to achieve. So critical thinking for me is far more pronounced in AI than people think.
Yeah, and actually, I think you're broaching a topic that I'm find myself really interested in. A lot of people talk about AI and the things we will lose as humans, as learners, as workers, etc. Because it's going to do so much for us. And not just simply jobs we might lose, but certain skills that will atrophy as a result of AI's presence. I'd love to hear a little bit more. You've mentioned critical thinking, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about the gains that we might see as a result of AI and as a result of being able to harness it in different ways. Again, you've mentioned critical thinking. I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the gains you think if we're able to utilize AI in a smart way. What you think we might find on the other side.
Yeah, Eric, it's a really interesting question, and there's something that I'd like to draw on just from what's happening in Singapore right now, where
Please.
and I think we can learn from what Singapore is doing. They've got what's called the 21st Century Competencies Framework embedded into their schools, and alongside AI literacy, they also promote civic literacy, and they see that as being really, really important. But they've redesigned assessment to allow for industry, government, and schools to partner, basically to create authentic assessment opportunities and to implore students to solve real-world problems. And one example that I saw that was done beautifully was students in a high school in Singapore creating AI-driven GPS applications to help dementia patients to navigate themselves around Singapore. But in order to do this, they had to learn project management skills. They had to master their own communication and negotiation skills because they had to work with the end users to meet their needs. They had to go back and do those iterations with them. So they were just learning so many important industry skills to set them up for success. And that really dawned on me when I was looking at this, that there's this opportunity. I know a lot of people are talking about the losses with AI, but the gains, I think, are around really making us rethink curriculum, making us rethink assessment. And this type of assessment just seems so much more useful and so much more practical than, say, a traditional essay or exam that we tend to see globally.
Mohammed, did you want to add anything to that? It looked like you were about
to
say something
thing
yourself.
I'm, as a philosophy major, the thing I'm really excited about, there's a whole new emerging discipline for AI ethicists now, requiring people to have a background in philosophy. And that was one of those humanities or liberal arts degrees where it was hard to get a sort of a relevant job, but now you can because of AI, and it's very ironic, isn't it? But the other thing AI does, as Dinesh said, it should be, and it's starting to it's starting to get us to rethink how we, within the education space, how we design and administer assessments. And industry is always talking about, you're producing all these graduates, and we've got to teach them from scratch because what you've taught them in the last 3 or 4 or 5 degrees is irrelevant and it's redundant and it's not what we need. So AI can kind of bridge that gap because as part of the learning within an academic context, if we begin to integrate more project-based learning, it'll have a more practical application to it that can be immediately transferable to a work setting.
That's great. And actually, as a humanities major myself, I'm pleased that 30 years hence I am becoming that much more relevant to industry. But you touched on AI ethicists, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about ethical considerations around AI. That's something that being in the education space myself, I hear a great deal about. AI and the potential for bias and the potential for disenfranchising certain students by virtue of the biases that creep in from those who created AI. But could you just say a little bit more about ethical considerations and any impact that the frameworks you've been referencing, might have on that space or that consideration? Just if you could say a little bit more about ethical considerations relative to AI.
Dennis, did you want to?
Yeah, happy to jump in. I mean, I think ethics is just such an important thing, and we know that there are many countries that have developed ethical frameworks. So in Australia, there are ethical frameworks that we reference, but there are also European and from around the world, these ethical frameworks which really guide thinking when it comes to the way to approach it in the classroom. But it's pivotal to teach for it. So straight away, you do want to make sure that integrity is upheld. You do want to make sure that your students really do understand the value of producing their own work, and to use AI. We always say to use it as a tool, use it as a thought partner, but essentially you should be the one who is producing the work, who is questioning what's going on. That's where we have our own framework called REARY, and I'll let Mohammed speak to this in a moment, but we have a framework called REARY, which basically we teach people to ask those critical questions, not just to go to the AI tool or the platform straight away, but to actually ask questions and to actually think deeply about what the problems are, what they're trying to solve for, and then also to actually mitigate for bias, hallucinations, and to understand that they are very real, and to really, really be thinking about inclusion and ethics in everything that you are doing, and to understand that the representation that you're getting from AI may be in some way colored. It may not necessarily be an authentic voice that you're getting, but to always be asking those questions. If something doesn't sound right, to not just blindly accept it. And I think that's part of this whole ethical viewpoint or framework, where the onus comes back onto us to do that quality assurance and to ask those right questions.
Mohammed, did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, well, Dinesh was talking about REARY, which is an acronym for a methodology, what we call a micro methodology that Dinesh and I designed last year to integrate into the teaching of our courses. And REARY, it's not a very technical methodology. It's a very simple methodology, but it's a very safe methodology. It's a very ethical methodology. And we call it a micro methodology because it's, broken up into 5 stages. So REARY stands for research, evaluation, apply, revise, and improve. And it's based on learning design principles. And then at each stage, each of those 5 stages, you're asking very analytical, critical questions at each stage of the process. So in the research stage, you'd be asking questions like, why do I need AI? Who will it help? How will it improve what I'm doing? Which particular tools shall I be using? And for example, in the apply stage, you're thinking about the rules that govern, or the policies that govern the integration of the AI for your users, which could be students or teachers or both. It could be even the admin staff within your school network. So this particular methodology is one that really helps to, again, think critically and analyze what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what you're trying to achieve, and for whom, by asking these questions. And collectively, it gives us an ethical framework, gives the user an ethical framework.
And Eric, if I could just add something there as well, that
Of course.
Something that's really important to us, and it has been from the moment that we conceived Rapid AI4 Learning, is that we take a human-centered approach, and that ties into the ethics, and it ties into what we believe is crucial. So, you may have heard statistics saying that for every job that AI takes, it'll create 2 more. What we want to make sure is that organizations are thinking about not how to replace people with AI tools and platforms, but they're thinking about all of the opportunities that they now have to optimize outcomes. And they're thinking about how they can reskill and upskill their current workforce and make sure that people are not left behind. So we want to really reinforce that. And that's why we think that the training and the commitment to continuous professional development is going to be everything.
Right. And it strikes me as you're both talking to that some of the skills, some of the outcomes of the frameworks that you're talking about actually would be useful even absent the presence of AI. You know, I'm reflecting on the fact that here in the U.S., which I know it's not unique to us, but we live in a very polarized environment where people are self-selecting the information that they receive, and there seems to be an absence of critical thinking. So what advice would you give? I mean, it is sort of pointed at AI and its presence in our lives, but these skills seem like they would be incredibly valuable without AI. What advice would you give educators or even those in the workforce to help ensure that people are becoming better critical thinkers and better citizens of the world as a result? Is there any advice that you could give to folks to ensure that they're cultivating these sorts of skills?
I'm just going to say that, you know, AI is really a subculture, a subset of our broader society. And in society, if you want that society to be a functional, orderly, safe, democratic society, you need to invest in it. You need to participate in it. You need to, you know, do what you can within your means to shape and influence and drive that environment where people feel included and feel safe and feel able to, you know, that they feel that they can contribute to that society. And AI is the same, because what a lot of people don't understand, that AI is a whole bunch of, you know, large language, you know, data sets that's inputted by a particular demographic within our respective communities around the world. And these are the people now that are shaping, you know, our thoughts and our sort of learning and the information we deduce or extract from AI. And, you know, we all have a share in that process. And what people don't realize as well is every time they go to ChatGPT or whatever their application is and they put in a query of some sort, they are in some sense contributing to that large language model by virtue of inputting that data. They are, you know, in real time, you know, training the large language model on what it should be doing or what it should be saying or what information it should give to the users. So I think just those realizations alone can help people feel a bit more empowered. And I think, you know, it's something that we need. I mean, I guess like any institution in life in our society, like we need to harness it. We need to have some ownership, and we need to set some rules around it. Because when we don't, you know, we end up with unsafe, dysfunctional, dangerous societies.
Yeah, and I'd just say, just to add to that, Eric, that Mona Morshed has done some really interesting research from Generation. She's done some really interesting research on the fact that older people are often getting left behind with these technology pivots. And as we sort of move to AI, that we know that older workers are particularly vulnerable. But I would say that some of the skill sets that older people generally have could be really useful here. And you mentioned the critical thinking, the problem solving skills, that level of experience. It's something that we can sort of bring together in a workforce, and we can actually train each other on. So you do potentially have, you know, by and large, you tend to have younger people who are much more tech savvy and much more sort of AI and tech literate. But then you often have some of the older heads who are much more, you know, adverse in critical thinking and problem solving, and they've seen these sort of things happen before. And if you put all of those skill sets together, you have a pretty dynamic organization. And I'd say that is, again, what it's teaching us. It's not about, and it's making sure that people don't get left behind here, and that everyone is brought along on the journey.
And the thing that older people have, the thing that older people have that young people don't have to the same extent, is subject matter expertise. And that's what AI is looking for right now. If you look at the jobs that are currently being advertised, but we keep thinking about AI jobs in the future. It's happening now. One of the largest niches or areas for AI jobs is in people who have subject matter expertise, and the older generation are far better positioned to be able to do that than younger people.
Right. Well, and on behalf of the older generation, I appreciate that hopeful note. So thanks for the shout out. Well, listen, we're running short on time now, but I'd love for you to before we go, are there any takeaways given Rapid AI for Learning's mission and sort of what animates you both and your organization? Are there any takeaways or any concrete, next steps that you would want to leave for folks who are listening? Just given everything we've talked about relative to your frameworks, relative to ethics, relative to the possibilities that lay in AI. Are there's some takeaways that you'd want to leave our listeners?
I would just say, don't be scared of AI. Don't be scared of the technology. Like, do start experimenting with it. Do start to use it, and really start to look at this mindset of learning more about it and continuous professional development. That lifelong learning, that commitment to lifelong learning. The old adage is really true that learning is earning. And if you can actually invest in this and get yourself up to speed and continue to have a curious mindset, you are going to really position yourself to be successful, because there are opportunities and there are jobs that will be created that you don't know about yet, but they, already we're seeing things like AI trainers, AI specialists. Mohammed mentioned AI ethicists, AI governance specialists, all sorts of different roles, which could be really, really exciting, that people who potentially have the skill sets to conquer those roles, they don't know about it as yet. And so we just really need to get folks into that learning mindset.
Yeah. Right. Mohammed,
the other adage about the other adage about the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So two ways you can apply that practically within your organization, whether it's a business or a government department or a school or university, is two things. Find one problem or issue that you would like to solve using AI, and find the smallest possible problem, the one with the least impact or the least risk. And then the second thing is go and find the most passionate person within your organization, passionate about AI, that is, and you say, Mr. or Mrs. Passionate person, here's the problem. We're giving you 1 day a week, 1 hour a day, whatever it is you've got, or 2 weeks, whatever time frame, and you go and fix this particular problem. Here are some resources, and reports back to us in a week, a month, or whatever it is, and then tell us how effective AI was for this particular problem, and why we should or should not be using AI for what we do. So I think there that as Dinesh said, start experimenting, but start small and find the most passionate person and give them some room to experiment, and then make them accountable where they need to come back and report what outcomes they've been able to achieve with that mini project.
Well, I appreciate you concluding on a philosophical note. I think you referenced the fact that you were a philosophy major back in the day, so I appreciate the callback as always. Well, listen, Dinesh and Mohammed from Rapid AI for Learning, greatly appreciate your time and
Pleasure.
Your insights and your hopeful look at the future and the future of AI. So appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Eric. Our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it.